Hi scholars, let's look at TEK 4.2H. It says I can determine the corresponding decimal to the tenth or hundredths place of a specified point on a number line. So this basically means that you might have a number line and there are some blank spaces and you are given like a dot on one of those blank spaces and you have to figure out what that decimal is. So we will first look at a number line and then I'll discuss strategies. So let's get started. I want to review real quick the decimal place value. So this is the tens place, and in my other videos I said that the reason, to help you remember that it's the tens place is because it takes 10 dimes to make $1. So, when you have like a 1 here, it's like 1/10 of a dollar. So if you have 2 here, it's 2/10 of a dollar. So it's like 10 cents, 20 cents, and so on and so forth. So to represent tenths, we use the tenths place value block. So this is what like the picture would look like. And every 1/10 that you have, you add one of these to it. And then for hundredths, we established that the little ones place value blocks that you use for whole numbers represents hundredths because 100 of these makes $1. So we think of this as like pennies. So if I have 1 penny, I have 1/100th. And so if I had 100 pennies, this would be 99 plus one more penny, which would make 100. This would jump over to $1. And so when we have pictures to represent that, you would have like one of these with spaces in it. So let me find one that's under, here we go. So this is 5/100ths. And so this would be my picture. And so this has more value than this. This is tenths, so think of 1 dime as 10 cents. This is hundredths, so think of 1 penny as 1 cent. So tenths has more value than hundredths, just as ones place has more value than tenths. Tens place has more value than the ones place. And so this right here in 5th grade, you're going to learn about this. This is the thousands place. This has this is less value than hundredths. Hundredths has less value than tenths. So I want you to imagine a blank number line from 0 to 1. On that number line, we have this divided up into 10 spaces. Now I drew 9 lines, but 9 lines give you 10 spaces. And I always tell my students, in order to know how many pieces it's cut into, you need to count the hills, not the number of lines. Because if you count the number of lines, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, then you're going to say it's cut up into 9 pieces, when technically, when you count the hills, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10 pieces. So if I have 0 to 1, and that's in 10 pieces, then let's talk about fractions first. This would be like 1/10, right? So this would be 0/10. That's 1/10, 2/10, 3/10, 4/10, 5/10, 6/10, 7/10, 8/10, 9/10, 10/10. It's really easy with fractions because you're just thinking, pieces and parts and things like that. But with decimals, there is decimals for number lines. So if this is 0, this is like $0, 0 cents, whatever. Then if you have 10 pieces and it's cut into tenths, then I'm going to write 1/10 as that first spot. Okay? Now just imagine a 0 right there. So think 10 cents, okay? So this would be 2/10, which you could think 20 cents, essentially. 3/10, 4/10, 5/10, 6/10, 7/10, 8/10, 9/10. Now you don't have 10/10, you have $1. Like you've reached $1, because if you have 90 cents and add 10 more cents, you've reached $1. You've reached 100 cents. So I also want you to pick up on the fact that if that's 1/10 and that's red 1/10, those match up. Okay, that's actually a different TEK, but I figured I might as well go ahead and show you the connection, that if that's considered 1/10, then, you know, the decimal matches with it. Now, I'm going to just take this one step farther just to kind of let you understand what's going on. I'm going to erase the fractions so there's no confusion. Okay, let's stick strictly with the decimals. Now, if this is 10 cents, which, you know, it's 1/10, but let's say I need to know what that is. Okay, so if you look at this entire number line, between 0 cents and $1, halfway is 5/10 or 50 cents. So halfway between 1/10 and 2/10, well, let me zoom in real quick. Let me zoom in so you can see what I'm talking about. Think 10 more pieces in between the 1/10 and the 2/10. So if this is 10 cents, then this is 11/100ths, 12/100ths, 13/100ths, 14/100ths, 15/100ths, which was the halfway point, which I wanted to know, 16/100ths, 17/100ths, 18/100ths, 19/100ths, and then this would be considered 20 cents. Okay, so if you have between 0 and 1 on a number line and it's cut into tenths, then your decimals would be in tenths. But then if they want something in the middle, then between those tenths, you draw 10 more lines, and that's when hundredths place value gets introduced, brought in. Okay, think about this. If I have 10 cents, between 10 cents and 20 cents is another 10 cents, right? You're adding 10 cents to make 20 cents. Sorry, didn't realize you couldn't see that. So that's why between each of these, there's 10 more spaces, because you're adding, you know, essentially 10 more cents between 1/10 and 2/10. So, sorry, let me explain that again. Between here and here, you have 10 more pieces. Between here and here, you have 10 more pieces. And so that each piece is 1/100th more. So let me show you addition to that. So here's 1/10 plus 1/100th. Remember, you put zeros in that spot. So you get 11/100ths. I'm going to add one more 100th to that. You get 12/100ths. I'm going to add one more 100th to that. You get 13/100ths. So that's where all of this is coming from. And then once you get 19/100ths, then you have 20/100ths. So let's look at this number line. I went ahead and got out 1 and 4/10. So here's 1 whole, and here's 4/10. 1, 2, 3, 4/10. So as you see, there's 10 spaces in between, and then it's going to 1 and 5/10. So because these two are in tenths, and like let's say they want to know what this spot will be, it's not going to be like 1.5, or like you can't say 1.5, 1.6, 1.7, 1.8, 1.92. Because if you keep going, 2.1, 2.2, 2.3, oh look, that's 1.5. You need to go into now the hundredths place. So you're going to add 100th. So 1 and 4/10 plus 1/100th is now 1 and 41/100ths. 1, 10, 20, 30, 40, 41. plus one more. Whoops. It's now 1 and 42 hundredths. Plus one more, 1 and 43 hundredths. Plus one more, 1 and 44 hundredths. Plus one more, 1 and 45 hundredths. Plus one more, 1 and 46 hundredths. Now, here's where I really want you to understand that even if you get the answer, it's important to fill out the entire number line. So then one more, 1 and 47 hundredths. One more, 1 and 48 hundredths. One more, 1 and 49 hundredths. If I add one more, that's 1 and 50 hundredths, because these 10 pieces are now going to trade in and be one of these. So I have 1 whole and 5 tenths and 0 hundredths. So these hundredths get traded in. The reason why it's important to fill out the entire thing is because, let's say someone is like, oh, it's 1.5, 1.6, 1.7, 1.8, 1.9. The answer must be 2, and I guarantee you that would be an answer choice. So if you keep going, you should realize, oh, look, that doesn't flow into the puzzle. And so it's important that even though you make it to here, you keep going until you get to a number that the question already had on the number line. And if it doesn't match up, then you need to go back and start over. Okay, so I'm going to do one more example, and then you're going to do some questions on your own. So here's one where it starts at 5 and 6 tenths and ends at 6 and 4 tenths. And I'm asked to find what that could be. So my first instinct would be to, I don't know, maybe try this. 5 and 61 hundredths, 5 and 62 hundredths, 5 and 63 hundredths, 5 and 64 hundredths, 5 and 65 hundredths, 5 and 66 hundredths, 5 and 67 hundredths. But look, this is supposed to be 5 and 68 hundredths, and it doesn't work, which means going to the hundredths is not a good idea. So you actually, I didn't use the strategy I want you to use as your first strategy, because then you'd get the answer. So I was just showing you that, hundredths wouldn't work. But what I'd like you to do as your first strategy is to try the tenths. Tenths is always the way to go. And so I'm filling this out, and it seems to work. So then 6 is my answer. And if it didn't work, let's say this was 5 and 68 hundredths, then I would have, if I would have filled it out and I'm like, oh, I got 6 and 4 tenths over here, obviously they gave me this, so then I would do this. Whoops. And then that's how you get the correct answer. Okay, I want you to fill out these two number lines. I want you to really pay attention that I gave you 2 parts. So when you fill this out, keep going to make sure it lands on 10 in the end. And then over here, I gave you this and like a random one over here. I didn't like jump exactly, a set amount. And then I want to know what that dot would be. So make sure you keep filling out until you get there to make sure it works. Press pause, fill it out, press play when you're ready to check. Okay, so looking at this one, I didn't have to go to the hundredths because I noticed that if this is 8 and this is 10, then this has got to be 9, which means this would be only cut into tenths. So my answer is 9 and 4 tenths. But now down here, this one was tricky. I had to make myself believe this is $4.70 and then fill it out. And then this is $4.79, so then $4.80. And then $4.81, and so on and so forth. This one was tricky because they gave it to you in tenths, but then you have something in the hundredths here.